It's my pleasure to introduce Komal Kotwal, a leading expert in sustainable design and equity. She is the founder of EquiSustain, a consultancy specializing in sustainability services with a focus on human well-being and equity. With over 18 years of experience, Komal has a remarkable track record in overseeing diverse projects, including airports and healthcare systems. She is an award winning architect and a thought leader known for her dedication to create sustainable, healthy, and equitable environments. Komal's academic background includes a master's in architecture from the University of Michigan and a bachelor's in architecture from University of Mumbai. Currently a Well faculty with the International Well Building Institute, she actively contributes to academic and professional forums. Her influence extends to advisory roles on multiple industry boards, showcasing her commitment to equity and inclusivity in the field. Today, Komal will talk on elevating sustainability in airport designs and operations. So let's welcome Komal.
As you have seen, the vast built footprints that airports have, sustainability in airport design and operations has become an imperative. It just given the daily volume of staff and passengers they serve. Right. So, what are the four areas of impact that we can see that airports can have or are influence? So, I'd like to break up this into four buckets. The first being an impact area, which is emissions, so energy efficiency, and with the ultimate goal being of net zero emissions. The second bucket is how can we bring about resource efficiency? In this bucket, we are thinking about, how can we use building materials that are sustainable, like recycled content, have low carbon, or but also about waste management and water use in airports as well, with the ultimate goal being of circular economy over here. The third area, just given their large building footprints, airports tend to have a large environmental impact. So when you're thinking about airports and sustainability, how can you limit that impact, like limit hampering the biodiversity or the nature around the space, and then finally creating environments that foster regeneration and foster a nature positive environment. And last but not the least, this is an area which I think is extremely important, especially how many people go in and out of airports, is the idea of incorporating health and well-being. So creating healthy buildings, we've seen from the pandemic how important it is in terms of air quality, but also because airports are these places where it can be stressful, travel can be stressful. So creating these calming environments that help ease the stress of travel and looking at a human-centered design approach for airport design as well. So moving on to the next slide, I'm going to start with each of these topics. I'll go through each of these topics briefly, but starting off with energy efficiency and emissions. I think the most important thing in airport design when you're starting off is to understand what are your biggest sources of energy consumption at the beginning of design. That may change based on location, based on greenfield versus brownfield, based on where in the world the airport is. But in this example that I've shown over here, what we did was created an early energy analysis of the project, and we understood that the most energy consuming parts in this airport design were going to be the space cooling and the baggage handling process that take up about 34% of the energy. As you can see, you don't think about baggage handling as an energy consumption source, but look how high it is right there with space cooling. And this is for an analysis we ran in a hot and humid climate such as Mumbai or the different parts of the country. So now that we know that this is what are the sources of energy consumption, what are the strategies that you can use? The one thing we don't want to do is just say we're going to put on renewable energy and call it a day, right? We want to address this holistically. So thinking about the various strategies for incorporating energy efficiency and thereby reducing emissions, getting to net zero carbon. The first one as architects is, first of all, how you site the building, how you orient the building. That's not always an easy option when it comes to airport design. So you have to think about what can you do from your building enclosure perspective. The airport on the right, as the image you see, I had a chance to be one of the sustainable design specialists for the LaGuardia Airport Terminal B, which opened a couple of years ago. And we studied various glazing options over here to help us understand which is the one that is going to give us the most energy efficient approach in there. The second strategy, which is a big one in airports, is lighting. Just how much impact by using energy efficient sources of lighting, incorporating as much daylight as possible, and having systems, having automated systems which allow the natural light to be used and turn off the artificial lighting during the daytime is a great way to do. This is a picture you can see over here is the Doha airport, the Hamad International Airport, where they've allowed a lot of natural light to flood that area. Dynamic glazing is our systems that we are seeing gaining a lot of traction, especially this is at Minneapolis airport, but also airports such as Dallas Fort Worth have adopted a mandate of completely using dynamic glazing. What does dynamic glazing mean? It is essentially glazing or glass which changes along with as the day changes. So it becomes darker if the sun is shining bright. So that helps people who are inside avoid glare, but it also makes the building more energy efficient. So the less glare coming in, the building uses less energy in there. A huge part of energy efficiency strategy in airports is sensors. Airports are complex. So there's building management systems, occupancy controls. How can all of this be looked at in a strategic way to make sure that you can get to an efficient operations when when the buildings, and what as designers and architects and engineers, I think something to recognize here is the role of commissioning in an airport system to have. That's why it's very important right from the design phases to have that. Heat recovery from process loads, imagine how much heat comes out. This is a very strong strategy. A lot of building energy codes world over are actually requiring this to happen. But for example, this airport that you see over here is a Niagara Falls International Airport. What they've done is the heat recovery systems takes energy from the baggage scanning machines and distributes it throughout the terminal to keep travelers comfortable in a cold climate. A series of ducts and fans kind of generally improve the airport's efficiency while keeping everyone warm when they want to be warm and cool when they want to be cool. So thinking of what's the right heat recovery solution. And I think I mentioned this earlier, high efficiency baggage handling system. This is almost, when I told Akanksha, I'll not just include opportunities, I'll also include challenges. This has been a challenge on some of the airports we've designed. If you don't think of baggage handling right from the beginning of airport design, the cost can be an issue. So efficient baggage systems are very critical to operational efficiency later, but also as the first cost as well. And efficient elevators and escalators, I think this is kind of what we call the low-hanging fruit. You have to do this to gain as much energy efficiency. And last but not the least, the way I like to approach it is, you think if you have reduced the amount of energy that an airport design would need, that's when you think about what is the right renewable energy approach. Airports have vast footprints. I think all of us have already said that. But this think about how much space they have available and how much, especially in a climate like ours where where this is a great resource. So utilizing solar energy. But if you're reducing the energy efficiency to begin with, you need less solar power, right? So that is why all of these first top 7 points are extremely important to recognize as well. Moving on, we talked about energy efficiency. If you remember one of my first slides, I talked about the resource efficiency. So what are some of the strategies that we're actively seeing and incorporating for making airports sustainable as a building themselves, right? Thinking about the building materials, low carbon materials, they are really gaining traction. So sometimes it's as extreme as this airport, which was a recent project which is a recent competition won by Big and HOK together for the Swiss airport, where it's a whole mass timber project. You can go as extreme on low carbon or think of material selections for the interiors that can reduce carbon, maximizing materials with recycled content, and using local materials, which where you do not need to ship them from all over the world. Even reusing materials or elements like art is a great way to showcase some of that within airports, maximizing the use of natural materials, minimizing synthetic finishes, and really using low emitting materials which are healthy for occupants as well, in addition to the environment. I think water use is one area that tends to be ignored when we talk about airport design, a little more than it should be. Water efficient fixtures are a great way to save. We have been working on a couple of airports recently where just low flow fixtures they have become the design standard at large airport systems, and they're saving 30 to 40% of water compared to what they would have if they wouldn't have used low flow fixtures. Gray water reuse, though, is hard for flushing, might be in some cases, it's still an option for irrigation. So looking at that as a alternative. Hydration and water filling stations, this serves the purpose of first encouraging people to drink more water instead of other unhealthy drinks and juices and cokes by having these water filling stations, but it also reduces plastic. Right, so it is a simple strategy that can be incorporated. And then lastly, using it as a means to education and awareness on water use reduction throughout, as with signage. The last area for resource efficiency, and I think this is one area that definitely is, needs a lot of, it needs everyone's participation, not just the design and construction one, but also the operations as well as the people, the staff, all the travelers. Having a construction waste management plan when you design an airport by contractors, putting that in the specifications by architects is important. Operational waste management plans are critical, because if you don't have a strategy on how are you going to compost, how are you going to recycle, it's all just going to go to the landfill. And again, an important part of this is education awareness on waste reduction as well. And then this is by far my most favorite part. How can airport design really have a human-centered design approach? So I think I mentioned this earlier, and some of the images that you showed, Srilata, also speak to this, but airport design can really play a role in reducing the stress associated with air travel. They are important to create calming environments. You see these lines and lines, like how many people are stressed by just the lines, right? But having these surroundings that generate a feeling of calm, either by daylight or interior plantings or outdoor views or natural materials, this is straight in the hands of us as designers and architects and engineers to give the travelers that experience. So what are the strategies for human-centered design approach? One is integrating biophilic natural elements in design. As you can see, this corner in the LaGuardia Airport in New York happens to be, one area which people actually feel relaxed when they're traveling. Using those natural material, using those tree plantings, optimizing those views to outdoors are really simple strategies that can be incorporated. And then focusing on indoor air quality has become an absolute must, especially after the pandemic. Everybody is very sensitive to their surroundings. All of us, somebody sneezes around us and then we tend to go away, right? So how can we use materials that help with that? How can we as architects and engineers use filtration systems and building systems? But lastly, we're also seeing a lot of airports adopting this real-time air quality monitoring. So essentially, what is there is someone on the staff side sees it integrated with the building management system. If the air quality is going down, if the carbon dioxide is rising, what is happening and how can that be acted to ensure good air quality in an airport? Then the third part about human-centered design is the focus on acoustic sound and thermal performance. There was a lot of studies done, and one of the things that came out is like the part that people are most sensitive to are the noise. And you can imagine how much noise there is on airport environments. So creating areas where the interior assemblies, walls, and surfaces have that quality to ensure that acoustic performance. We're also doing zoning and mapping to really create those environments that are not loud, that make people feel comfortable. And the second part here is occupant engagement to promote health and well-being. We are seeing a lot of airports around the world, using these environmental graphics, where, for example, you have those walkways, encouraging people to actually walk versus the walkways, and that encourages a healthy lifestyle. Small things that you can do with environmental graphics, but also inclusive designated wellness areas. Just because somebody has access to a lounge and they can relax, that does not make everybody's travel comfortable. So creating these mindful spaces or interactive spaces that are accessible to all is a trend, or is a future aspect that we're seeing more and more. And then staff training and education to promote health and well-being. Airport staff works around the clock. What are airport designers providing to help them also create these spaces of comfort? I have been asked this question. There's so many certifications in the sustainability world. What is the one that you would recommend for airports? And it is Envision. It is a framework that really allows for a holistic sustainability framework. It's a rating system, and that guides different types of infrastructure projects, including airports. We're seeing more and more airports adapt this. It focuses on, everything pretty much that I just talked about, like emissions from bottom to top, natural world, how do you protect the ecology that you are in, where are you siting the airports, resource allocation, so what materials you're using, how much water you're saving. I think Srilata showed us the slide with the number of stakeholders that are there in airports. So that is an important part of sustainability. Like, are you collaborating, planning, every voice is being heard or not? And then lastly, again, well-being and mobility, like how are people getting to the airport, for example. So all of these are addressed in this Envision framework, and I'm happy to provide any more information if anyone would like on this later on. But that's a great place to start if you're looking for, where do you incorporate sustainability. And I like to leave everyone with this slide, which is kind of a vision of positiveness and opulence, right? I'm sure everyone's seen this beautiful new Changi terminal. And when we talk about sustainability, there's always about minimizing and reducing and saving. It's about taking away. But why we need to look at a future where our designs and our projects actually give more, right? So this is an image which makes you feel like we're enhancing habitat, we're creating resources, we're harvesting energy, we're engaging the community. So I think given how big a role airports play in our daily lives and there's a great opportunity for them to become the symbols of from sustainable to regenerative.
Thank you, Komal. That was indeed an intriguing submission on elevating sustainability in airport designs and operations.